Welcome to the Sharpe Way. Yes, it is a special Sharpe Way show, a question about resetting capitalism. I actually saw a bit about this, and I want to bring this up. It's an important part that we start talking about. What are people talking about after the COVID virus? Whatever this aftermath will be, how do we recover? What do we do? Who has the power? People, government? What are we going to do when this happens? As always, like, comment, share right now. Get out there, put some comments down. Just like Robert's doing. Thank you so much, Robert. I appreciate it. Hello, how are you? It is important that we comment and we like and we share so that people know this is happening, so that people understand what's going on. And as always, follow me on Twitter, The Sharpe Way Twitter. Like me on Facebook, The Sharpe Way Facebook. And subscribe to me on YouTube, The Sharpe Way YouTube. And if you got some cash, as always, please, patreon.com/SharpeWay. If you like what we're talking about tonight, show the love. $8, $20, or $100, whatever you got. You got tons of money. That's awesome. Shove it my way. Happy to have that assistance. What I want to talk about today is how are we going to respond to the economy in the coming months and probably even in the coming years. There is already a push, and you know it and you see it. There's been one for literally years to turn away from capitalism and to move towards more socialism. You've heard people say things like, how can there be a libertarian during a COVID crisis and that type of thing. You hear that all the time. And the reality of it is that's not actually true. But you hear it, which means there is going to be a push for it. Absolutely there is. We have to make sure that we understand what's actually happening. So I picked a couple of videos, I picked a couple of, I guess, reports from not Fox, not CNN, none of those two, but instead two British outlets, so that it wouldn't feel like it is as, I guess, as biased, and that we could have a serious conversation on what is going to be happening. The first one is pre-COVID, and the other one's post-COVID. So you'll see both, right? I want to start, if I could, with the pre-COVID piece first. So you see what I mean by that. And we'll walk through that right now. It'll be a few minutes, but I think you'll enjoy it, what they're talking about and what they care about. Here we go.
Trust is still low 10 or more years after the financial crisis.
And I got to make sure you hear that piece. Trust is still low. Now, this is before COVID. He's saying trust is low for everything that happened after the crisis. And this is 2009 crisis. This actually came out in very, very late 2019.
And that seems a good enough reason to say we need to rethink the various fixes that were put in place after the 2008-2009 crisis.
Now, the piece that I want to bring up here is he's saying because this happened, right, there's no trust, we should be rethinking all the things that government put in place. He's right. That part's true. That part's accurate. He's totally right. The question is government the one to do something? This is the issue, right? And the problem is with most Americans, as many of you know, friends and family members, the second that people hear a problem, they go, oh, you know what that means? More government, more socialism. That's what they think. But he actually is not going to say that. It's going to sound crazy. He actually is not going to say that.
And see what more profound change can be brought through
real change,
business and finance.
He's actually thinking differently.
So a movement to reset capitalism is already underway.
Yes,
One
it is.
opportunity in 2020 is that lots of business people are now talking about purpose and the need to instill new ways beyond pure shareholder value.
Now, this piece I want to bring up, for those of you who've heard me speak, when you knew when I was campaigning, I spoke often about the idea that there's been no real recovery after 2008. That's true. There was very little. And that was one of the reasons why people rushed to cities, one of the reasons why upstate New York was suffering so much. There are many reasons, but that was one of the reasons. He validates that, as I was talking about. But he doesn't say we have to have a government change. He says businesses and business leaders are already thinking, again, this is pre-COVID, they're already thinking about other things other than shareholder value. This is an important cultural change, not a legal change necessarily, but a cultural change. Since the 80s and 90s, there has been an idea that the only thing a business needs to be concerned about is its stockholders. That is a horrible idea. It actually doesn't work. It's not required to be true. It's just a mantra that we've kept up with. I've always said, and I've always taught, and I still believe, it is not stockholders. It is all shareholders, meaning people who are employees, people who are customers, and people who are shareholders. Stockholders. All of those things, all of the people, did I say shareholders? I meant stakeholders, right? All the people who are stakeholders, all of them, right? All the people who are stakeholders are important to an organization. If they get that, they become more successful. And business owners are figuring this out. And they're going, you know what? This isn't working. This isn't the right answer. We should start shifting. Again, pre-COVID.
What you're seeing happening today is a very necessary return to stakeholder capitalism, if you like, i.e. the idea that business and markets should be set within a wider social context and a legal and political framework. We're not just moving from a world of narrow shareholder focus to stakeholder focus. We're also moving towards a world where investors increasingly recognize they need to look at the long term.
Yes.
You need to have a wider sense of what context you're operating in.
Now, where does government come in? It doesn't. Government never looks long term. It just looks short term, which is why we screwed up so bad in 2008. The government took over and said, we'll take care of this, and threw money at it. Why are we having problems now with COVID? The same thing. Short-term solutions, not long-term. And government has been, business has been falling behind that and suffering. And now they want to change it. Absolutely.
Investors and business executives are people just like you and me.
That's
they
not
have
true.
Children.
Yeah, they're not like you and me, though. They are humans that they have children, but they're not like you and me. That part's not true.
Those children are skiving schools on Friday to go on strike against the environment.
No, they're not. My kids aren't doing that, and probably yours aren't either. So that's not really true. She lives in a different world. That's not accurate. They're humans, yes, but their kids aren't leaving school to go protest the environment. That's not, my kid doesn't do that, and yours probably doesn't either.
And this really sharpens the issue for people. Suddenly, investors are looking much more seriously at how do we become good stewards of the global environment? How do we...
Now, in reality, that's also not true. Most investors aren't looking at that, but they're looking at the image of that. That they are looking at. They're looking at the image. And here's the problem. When government goes, oh, you need that, then government steps in. And I'll give you an example that some of you who care about your food will get. The government walked in and decided, well, let's see, we need to care about people and such. So we're going to make a legality, a ruling on what is organic and what isn't. And for those of you who know food very well, you know that doesn't really mean very much. But an investor goes, oh, see, we have this thing that's organic or all natural or insert thing here, so they can look like they care, even though it doesn't work. What about the idea when the government told you, oh, all that matters was that things are fat-free. That's all that mattered. They made a rule on fat-free. So the market responded, hey, let's make stuff that's fat-free, even though we just added 18 pounds of sugar and or salt. So for those who care about food, you see that when government decides to step in and help out, right, things often don't work. What she's saying is people are concerned, investors. There are definitely some investors who care a lot about impact and environment. Of course that's true. Of course it is. And lots of others who actually don't, but care how it looks because they need people to buy the product or they need investors to feel good about themselves. Insert thing here. And what I'm saying is government does not have to be involved here. Sometimes it's just, look, we look like we care. But the government allows them to look without actually caring. I would rather them actually have to care to get the benefit of caring. I have a personal issue on this, and that is the idea of supporting veterans. You find businesses go, we support veterans because we bought whatever, yellow ribbons or something like that, right? Well, that's nice you bought yellow ribbons. I do like that. That's good for awareness. But how about instead Have a veterans affiliates group in your company instead. Have a checkbox someplace on your box when people get hired that has a veteran checkbox, so we know how many veterans are in there, so you can actually have a group that will support them. That would be something I'd rather have than you buy the yellow ribbons. Nice, you bought the ribbons, but I'd rather you have that instead. And that's what I really want to happen. And that's business functioning to support veterans versus government giving checkboxes.
Look ourselves in the eye in 20 years' time and think that we did the right thing.
Each year that we advance into the 21st century, a younger generation that is worried about
this is key.
The purpose of the corporation, the purpose of capitalism. And
that's the issue that I'm totally okay with. And I think it's a good thing. What he's actually saying, and when I first saw this, I thought, okay, he's going to start saying, here should be the laws that governments put in to regulate capitalism, or here should be the laws that government puts in to do this thing. No, what he's actually saying is they're going to start changing, because as the youth comes up, they're going to say, I don't want to be part of this if it doesn't do what I want it to do. That is a consumer-driven a policy. And I'm 100% okay with that. If the consumer says, company, you better do X, Y, or Z, or I'm not going to invest in you, or I'm not going to buy your product or service, I'm good. Yes, I am good.
It's an optimistic sign, I think, that people will be able to lead this change in 2020 in ways that they weren't necessarily in previous years.
He says that what he actually says, he says it lightly because he can't say it openly. He says people will lead this, like we have it in previous years, meaning government led it and it failed. This is the Financial Times. This isn't Joe Schmo. This is the Financial Times. They're saying government screwed it up. People can do it right. And they're right.
Change going to come from over the next year? Well, there's lots of statistics out there that show that the younger people are, the more they care about these issues.
Sure.
These young people are going to become customers of banks, of pension
there
providers,
we go.
of the entire financial services industry. The competitive pressure that's going to come from firms.
Wait a minute. Did someone just say that competition could make better businesses that care about the environment and such? What? Yes. Financial Times saying that competition could actually be a good thing for customers and consumers who want their businesses to do certain things. Yes, this is how we reset capitalism. By the consumer resetting it in the way the consumer deems appropriate, which is how that's actually regular capitalism, right? Not the crony capitalism that we have right now. She's talking about actual capitalism where the consumer decides, I care about the environment. You better care too. If you don't, I'm not going to do business with you. And you might say, Larry, that never happens. It does. But not just that. Getting talent. If you look at the youth right now in our world, if you look at the youth right now, and I don't know if many of you are paying attention to the young people trying to get jobs now. If you look at any business right now, when it's trying to recruit people, every business that's trying to recruit a lot of people will have something like an about us or a mission or a vision or meaning or impact or something like that on their website or on their Instagram page or on their Facebook page, because a lot of youngsters are looking at that and going, if they don't have the message that I want, I don't even want to work for them. I don't even want to work for them. Businesses are going to struggle to get talent. Businesses are going to struggle to get customers. Now, to be forward, that may take time. Absolutely. That might take some time. That's not going to be an immediate hit, but it's a long-term, sustainable cultural change that will get us the deep change that we need in our nation for the long run. Much better than any government program, much better than any government edict, much better. When the people simply say, and you've heard me say this before, how do you get people to fight China, right? They've asked like, Larry, how are you going to punish China for what they've done? Here's the way we do it. It takes time, but it works. When you have transparency and then consumers know exactly what China's doing and how they're doing it, and we decide that we're okay not spending 25 cents for crayons for our kids for school at Walmart that's Chinese made, but spending 50 cents for the crayons that are made in America or some other country that you're okay with. When we do that, China will stop. Our policies are irrelevant at that point. China will go, wait a minute, you're not going to buy my crayons for 25 cents because I do all these horrible things? Yeah, I'm not gonna. They will stop doing horrible things. It is literally that simple. Now, that will take several years, but it's sustainable. It is permanent, and it will teach every other country that's doing these terrible things to stop. But it also encourages us to stop having enemies. Why will Iran or North Korea do what we want them to do? They won't. But what if we were trading with them? And they were making money in our markets. And then they did bad stuff. And then we stopped buying their stuff. They would change. You want to change a country? Have a strong middle class. That will change a country. You have a strong middle class? Have a whole lot of commerce. This is why freer trade is good for economic policy, and freer trade is good for foreign policy. Transparency is good to change it all. That's the issue. Transparency is good to change it all. Government is not going to do that. It never does.
Looking to snag business from these people as they develop wealth, as they become older, is getting increasingly intense.
There will be an increasing clamor of people asking for business leaders to deliver on promises that they made in 2019.
That's already happening. He's totally correct. That's already, even with COVID, it's still already happening. He's totally correct.
Notably, the Business Roundtable, people will start asking those 180 or so signatories of that statement, what have they actually done in 2020?
For the finance and market sectors that I'm primarily focused on, the real thing is figuring out how to get money to green projects. How do we issue green bonds? How do we help companies that are trying to transition?
Did you hear green bonds, money into green projects? Now, hold on. Where was the government forced edict for that? Oh, I remember. Nowhere. But in New York State, they force you instead to, oh, here's extra government money so I can force you to put up windmills when you don't want windmills. How about, remember that? Yeah, still going on all across the country. Government deciding where the things go, your taxpayer money, my taxpayer money. She's saying investor money. What kind of money is investor money? That would be voluntary money. If you want to invest your money in a green initiative, you should be able to. Please do that. That would be amazing. But I shouldn't be forcing you to invest your money in a green initiative. Lots of people want to put their money into green initiatives. It's clear, you see it everywhere. People want to do it. So instead of the government deciding, I'm going to tax you and take your money and put it to some place where it fails, and then when it fails, the taxpayer is on the hook, instead, why isn't government in helping and encouraging people to put their money voluntarily into these businesses who want to do it anyway? And if something goes wrong and they screw up, then the business deals with it, and they have to fix this, fix it themselves. They've got to come up and find an answer, not you or I through our government taxpayer, tax-funded policies. This is happening. This is Financial Times, the UK. This is stuff I've been talking about forever. I'm telling you, it's real.
Away from being dirty, oily companies.
Those dirty, oily companies. Yes, people care about that stuff. If they didn't care, it wouldn't be changing. Us caring, us talking is a critical piece here. It matters. The more we do this, the more people will be changing. The more we'll change without government having to. The next COVID shows exactly the same thing, and I'll cover that in a second.
Into green technology, where does the money come from for that process? That's what bankers and investors are definitely grappling with now.
Bankers and investors are grappling with that. Yeah, let them. Why should our taxpayer dollars be grappling with that? No. Let them grapple with that, as they should. And they'll do things, and they'll usually be right, but sometimes they'll be wrong. All good. And guess who can judge it? The consumer and the investor. Yeah, we can judge it.
And they know that if they don't get this right, that next generation, the Greta Thunberg generation, is not going to be interested in using their services.
Now, Greta Thunberg, though, she wants the government to change everything, right? So hopefully that'll fail. And when that fails, she can now shake her fist and do her how dare you against some company, which I'm okay with. I'm happy, Greta. Yell and scream at some company that isn't doing what you want them to do, and then don't buy their product and tell people their product is garbage and it's dirty. I like her saying dirty. They don't like it. Awesome. Then they'll change. I'm fine with that. You don't have to use government force to get what you want, Greta. I think you can get what you want easily. I think this woman is completely correct. Listen to her. Do what she says. And you're right. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not against Greta at all. I think she's brave and bold and all that good stuff. Go, Greta. Just yell at companies and tell them to do stuff. And they will, because they're scared of you. Because you shake your fist and say, how dare you?
On the downside, of course, though, although we might hope in 2020 for there to be more regulatory and policy change.
We might hope there'll be more regulatory. Is that what he said? Is that how the British say it? And policy change. No. Well, I guess if you mean by removing them, then yes, I think at that point, then I guess maybe we are on the same page. But I'm not sure we're thinking the same way. I hope that we are thinking that.
To try and reset and curb the worst excesses of capitalism. There are going to be distractions, notably the US presidential election and impeachment.
Remember, impeachment didn't happen yet. This is late 2019.
And also in the European scenario, Brexit, and in Asia, China and Hong Kong.
Bingo. So any investor who's looking at a company or the corporate landscape needs to recognize that if you ignore those risks, you're in danger of essentially seeing the value of your asset being impaired.
Now, the danger of your asset being impaired, that concept to me is brilliant. Because does the average investor say, I care what Greta Thunberg says? No. Does the average investor say, is this green enough for me? No. Does the average investor care if the value of their asset goes down? Yeah. Yeah, they do. Absolutely. So if we as consumers can make that, be transparent, show what's happening, say we're not on board, we can change everything. We can reset capitalism without government. We can reset our environment without government. We can reset our economy without government. It's not required. It will take some time. It will take transparency. It will, but it's long-term sustainable, and it can be done without force, voluntary. Nobody's forced. If you like the dirty companies, you can still use them if you like them, or you don't have to.
So if you want to understand the reset that's going on right now, it pays to think about fear and
already
greed.
Happening.
The fear element is
fear and greed.
Cut. Essentially what you have are many C-suites who are waking up and realizing.
Now, the fear piece he talks about, C-suites. For those of you who don't know, C-suite means the top level of the organization. The CEO, CFO, CMO, COO, the CMO. That's called the C-suite. So she says C-suites are waking up in the morning thinking,
realizing that if they don't start paying attention to stakeholders, they face regulatory pressure.
Yep.
They face consumer backlash.
Yep.
They sometimes face their own protests from their own employees.
Didn't I just say employees won't want to work there? Employees won't want to work there. People won't want to buy it. And then there's going to be, guaranteed, there's going to be some congressperson or senator who goes, I'm the environmental person, so let me start hammering you with regulations. That's going to happen unless you do this on your own, following what happens, right? And the best example, which for some people is not a good example, but one of the best examples might be maybe the video game industry, perhaps, movie industry. They kind of self-regulated themselves relatively quickly. And maybe I'm not, but anyway, you get it. They rate themselves, so government really didn't step in, because once they started rating, the people didn't really care anymore. They were like, okay, that's good enough. We're good. I know what I'm seeing. That's transparent enough for me. I'm not sure it's true, but the people believe it. Government, now a congressperson or a senator doesn't gain points, right? If a congressperson goes, I want to rate the movie industry, they're going to go, they're rated. You don't get any cool points for that, congressman. You don't get any cool points for that, senator. You can't be righteous. You can't virtual signal that way. It doesn't work because they did it already. What she's saying is, do it now, companies, before government gets in and screws it up. And she's right.
And they also face potential investor pressure.
Yep.
But the greed element is important too.
She says greed's also important. So the fear part matters, right? But also the greed part also matters.
Some companies also recognize that if they start looking at stakeholders more broadly, they can build for the long term. If they
Bingo.
can get ahead of the really important social and environmental changes right now, be that
If they can get ahead of the social changes, yes, you are so correct. You are right. We can reset. Here's the best part. The reason why, this is the hard part, they have to get ahead of it. Why? Right? What are you racing against? What are you racing against? You're racing against two things. One, your competition, which is a good thing, because if your competition gets faster, you'll fall in behind or you'll collapse. But more importantly, what are you actually racing against? Yeah, government. You're actually racing against government, because if you don't take care of this fast enough, Big Brother will step in and ensure that only monopolies exist and there's no real change. And we see that again and again and again. Is our food really much better? Think about that. Compare the food in Whole Foods versus the food in the regular supermarket. The supermarket is so much better with the FDA? Are the medicines so much better? Are all the things so much better?
renewable energy, be that non-meat alternatives,
Non-meat alternatives.
be that other ways that you can tap into the growing concerns amongst consumers for sustainable products. If you can do that, then often you can make more money in the long term anyway.
There we go. And that's the part I really want to bring up. This is the future, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that little piece. That was all about prior to COVID. I want to cover COVID too, but that was all prior to COVID. All right, I want to grab a couple comments and questions. I appreciate that. Governments lock down the country and then people blame capitalism for economic collapse. Isn't that insane? Yes, Travis. So the government stops capitalism and says, see, that's because of capitalism. Exactly correct. I really hope more people see that. You're exactly right. Call it what it is. The communists and Marxists have done this. There's no reset. Josh, I hope you're wrong. I really hope you're wrong. Right? You might be right, but I hope you're wrong. I'm going to believe you're wrong. Otherwise, I have no hope. So I'm going to believe that you're wrong because we have to fix this, and I want to fix it. I wish I was holding a medium filet Milan steak. I like medium rare, but filet mignon is great. I've actually gone into restaurants and said I'd like to have a filet mignon and watch what the server does. It's actually funny. You could try that. Or go to a diner or a restaurant and say, I'm curious, what's your soup du jour? I mean, I go to places and it's like different every day. I'm kind of curious what yours is. Good joke. Servers like that if you tip them well. So yes. Okay. Organic means I paid New York $300. Yes. Thank you, Shelley. You exactly got it. Right. Exactly. Right. When government steps in and decides something, doesn't make it real. It makes it as a stamp. That's what it is. So big business profits from virtual signaling. Tim, yes. Yes. Right. What I want, though, is I want the virtue signaling to actually be real change that the consumer wants. I actually don't mind the virtue signaling as long as there's something behind it, right? If it's just for that, but if there's something behind it that a consumer actually wants, take the benefits of the brand value. That Financial Times woman said, there's a greed aspect, right? If we do it right, people buy the product or invest in the company or want to work for the company. As long as they're being transparent and that virtue signaling is simply a byproduct of something that's a real change, I'm actually okay with it as long as something's being done that the consumers actually want. That's the issue. I helped a guy fill out about 40 pages of box checking to get certified organic milk, and he can't find a market. Yeah. Yes. Certified organic milk. Absolutely. Why can't we find that if China is still processing poultry? I don't know, actually. I don't know, actually. Yes. That's how you use cancel culture. Cancel China. Yes, Travis. You know what? If you're going to use it for something good. I'm with you. Use it for something good. 100%. Absolutely. Shelley likes it. Perfect. We need to change the name of the Libertarian Party from Libertarians to Transparentarians. Wow, that's a tough one. Transparentarians. Transportarians? No, that's like transport. You're right. It's got to be transparent. It's got to be Transparentarians. That's a mouthful. All right. Transparentarians. We'll give it a shot. Yes. We should add boxes to check off that allows property taxpayers to choose what to fund. It's not a bad idea. It's a good use of check boxes. I would agree. Yeah, I'd agree with that. That's not a bad one. New York Power Authority litters upstate with power lines, and they took an entire town to build their dam. Yep, absolutely. Yes. Or they could have just let the private market put up a couple of nuclear power plants. That might have worked too. If I was governor, maybe better. Yes. Imagine if I were able to keep more of my earnings and turn around and invest in those earnings voluntarily. Wade, what an insane idea. You would keep more of your money, and then you could put your money voluntarily into products, services, and investments that you think are appropriate. I don't know. Wow, that's crazy. Look, why don't we think about that? I'm not sure if our overlords in government would be okay with that. Let's ask their permission first to see if we can do that. Wade, nice. Here's what I promise you. If that were to happen, I guarantee we would be more effective in fixing things like climate change, because the individuals would have to provide us with the information that we need to decide, yes, we want this, that it matters to us, and then we put our money into it. And if we couldn't actually put money into it, if you didn't have that much money, you would buy those products. And if you had the money, you'd invest it. Of course you would. Yes. Think about how blind the duopoly would be with transparency. Yes, they can't stand it at all. They can't stand it at all. Yes, the electronics industry also regulates itself. You're right, Robert. With the Underwriters Laboratory, I think that's right, UL, 100%. Totally works. Voluntarily without government. I'm going to cover that in a piece also. Yes, absolutely. The next piece I'm going to bring up talks exactly about that's the COVID piece. Larry, you're right. Video games have the ESRB ratings, and it's what keeps the government out of it. Yes, exactly right. Correct. Unless you are China and they just outright ban them. Well, there we go. Yes. So government again, and I'm sure there's a black market in China for it. I'm sure there is, because there's always a black market when people ban it. But yes, ESRB rating. Thank you. That's what it was, Travis. Thank you. I knew that. All right. Look at what the government did to the American farmer. Devastated the small farmer. Devastated them. Absolutely true. Yes, 100%. The challenge is people are not able to easily vote with their feet because the government steals their paychecks and push people into poverty. Not just poverty, Sam. You're right. But on top of that, debt. Poverty and debt, as most of you know, often go hand in hand. Almost always. That's not a 100% rule, but it's about a 99% rule. Right? Usually it's poverty and debt, and Samuel, they're finished. You're totally correct. They're finished. Less government, more capitalism. Absolutely, 100%. All right, I want to, if I can, I want to cover the second piece here. And this one now is post-COVID. This is after COVID, and talking about what we learned from what happened during the crisis and how we can think about what's going to happen now, upcoming from what happened in that crisis here. So if I can grab this real fast. This also is The Economist. So it's British. I didn't want to use Fox or CNN. I didn't want you guys to think it was that biased. So I hope we can get this one through too.
China is bouncing back from the effects of coronavirus.
First get hit and
the world
back.
is watching to see what they can expect from life after lockdown. China's economy is now functioning at around 90% of normal levels.
Now, you would think, hearing that, it's responding and bouncing back right now at about 90%. And this video is about 3 weeks old, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, about two or 3 weeks old, I believe. So you would think that 90% is great, but think about the margins on a lot of the businesses that have been closed. 90%? When your margins are 4 or 5%, you're still losing money. You're still going under. Still going under.
90% is an incredible achievement, but in practice will feel very, very strange.
Yep.
A 90% economy may not sound too bad, but for many, it could be catastrophic.
Yes, that's my point, right? If your margin is 4% or 5%, and a lot of retail, it is, tiny. So who knows, right? Oh my God, you might still go under. You might still go under. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden it's great. So Shelley, or so they tell us. Valid point, Shelley. Touche. What they tell us, who knows what's real? The Chinese, they're not all about transparency at all. They are really not about transparency. So maybe it's 90%, and maybe it's not. And maybe it's not. You're right. Good point.
Some of the worst unemployment numbers in this country's history.
6.6 million plus people laid off in a single week.
Yep. Big deal.
It wouldn't be that surprising if we think we're kind of through the worst of it, we end the lockdown, and then things start to get even worse.
Now that's my scariest piece, guys. This is my scariest piece. Alexandra, you're asking about punishing the CCP. You must have gotten on just recently. I talked about how to do that about 10, 15 minutes ago. If you have a chance to rewatch this, the earlier part, I discussed punishing China. I did. So I did cover that, but earlier. What this guy says, which is important, he says, now the lockdown's over and stuff gets worse. See, that's one of my biggest worries, right? We really locked ourselves down horribly. And I'll give you a quick story here in my own area. I got a haircut today. Happy as can be. Hold on, let me show you so you can look and see how cool my haircut is. I got a haircut today, right? For the first time in months, a professional one. I got homegrown ones, which aren't bad, but professional's better. And when I went there, he had the guys had the plastic up, and we had the mask on. And I had to move the mask as he does my ears and the whole deal, right? And I was happy with that's fine. But I asked him, I said, how was it for these past 3 months? New York City's been shut down for 3 months. He said, oh, yeah. Yeah, it's been bad. He said, no money for 3 months. And I said, what do you mean no money for 3 months? I said, you didn't do any like black market stuff? He's like, no. I'm like, you didn't like have people come over, cut hair. You didn't do any black market stuff? He said, no. He's like, he was afraid. Why? Because the people in my neighborhood, I have literally the worst, documented statistically, the worst neighborhood for Karens. We call each other out. We have basically a secret state police in my neighborhood. He was afraid the cops would come. He's afraid people would call him out and destroy his livelihood. So he just sat home for 3 months with no money. This guy, I happen to know him, has a wife and 2 kids. No money. 3 months. How's he going to pay his bills? I don't know. I hope he finds it. And because I know him and he's been my barber for, 10 years now, how long it's been, I gave him a massive tip today because I'm like, wow, there's a massive tip. Maybe he's lying to me and that's how he gets extra money. I don't know. But anyway, it worked. If he was lying, it worked perfectly. I totally fell for it because I gave him a really big tip today. So it totally worked. But I did ask him. He didn't tell me. I asked him. So he might have been very slick on that one. But my point being, what's going to happen? 3 months from now, when the bills are due, when he's in heavy debt, is he going to be able to survive or is he going to go under? Is his shop going to shut down after several months? Right? I don't know. That's an issue. Yes, I live in Karenville. That is true. And yes, generally speaking, retail is about 2-3% profit. Thank you, Dennis. If you're at 90%, there's a 10% gap. There's not much profit there. You're in trouble. You're in trouble.
As global lockdowns ease, the economy faces the greatest challenge in living memory. Here's what you need to know.
This is difficult for us.
In China, factories are up and running.
Yep.
Classrooms are full. Restaurants are open.
Yep.
But the economy has not returned to normal.
There's the issue, right? Not returning to normal is bothering me. But not just for the dollars. The dollars bother me, obviously, right? Of course. But also how are we responding to each other socially? Right? That also bothers me. Are we no longer going to shake hands or hug each other? Are we going to be far apart from each other? Think about how hard it is as an average American, the average American, to find intimacy with family and friends and loved ones and romance. How difficult is that already? Now you're adding that? Oh my God. We already have epidemic of loneliness. We already have, an epidemic of incels, people who are involuntarily celibate. because they have trouble making connections. We already have issues with anxiety and everyone who's under 30, right? We already have these issues. Now you're going to add this to them? Oh my God.
In fact, it's operating at around 90% of usual levels. And as lockdowns ease elsewhere, this 90% economy could be what the rest of the world has to look forward to.
That's what we look forward to. We have this to look forward to. Ouch. Yes. Ouch. It's sad New Yorkers used to have such great sense of community. Yeah, I think that's kind of gone away, Travis. I don't see it here. I don't see it at all. Yes. Everyone is already talking that there's going to be a large second lockdown. I am scared of that too. I think it might happen. I hope not in New York. I've already been punished enough. I don't need to be punished anymore. People are once again terrified to get COVID-19. Yep. Suddenly the narrative has twisted to start hiding the protests from much of the public. It's all very bad magic act. It's not bad. I like that magic act. That's pretty good. Yes. Yes, Wade, I voluntarily helped out my hairdresser. How dare I do that? I should have told you. I'm sure someone who's watched this called the cops. There'll be a knock on my door soon. If you see me get yanked out real fast, it was because of that, Wade. Don't tell, Wade. Come on. I'm sure there's one of them there. Yes. I live in Putnam County, so it's a bit better. I appreciate that. Absolutely. Yes. Globalization at its most unfortunate point. Yes, look, I'm not against globalization at all. I'm against however the market grows on its own. The problem is there are downsides to all this, Matt. You're right. There are downsides to all this, and we've got to be able to deal with all of these downsides so we can enjoy the best of globalism and keep down the worst of globalism. You're right. It's not a single issue of just great. There are many tough parts to globalism. I agree. Absolutely. All right, hold on. Let me grab a couple more.
Regardless of how countries have dealt with the pandemic, it's becoming clear that once businesses have to operate with social distancing in place, the economy can be expected to shrink by about 10%.
So the economy is, imagine if our economy that's been growing at 1%, 2%, or 3%, whatever it's been recently over the last several decades, shrinks 10% and doesn't come back. Oh my God, that is going to be a massive change for us. I see it here in New York City, and I brought this up before, but I got to be clear. Since I've been able to say, to stay, since I've had to stay home, right? Since my Lord and Master King Andrew Cuomo II has deemed that I'm not essential, I can't go out and work, and most of the business I worked for have been shut down. So I've had to change most of my work to coaching. Most of my has been coaching through Zoom or through Skype. That's most of my work now. It's been that way for 3 months or so. The vast majority of my work is some form of coaching. That's how only way I can make money now. Luckily, my overlord allows me to do this. So I guess I should all praise be to his grace. So I'm able to do that. But most of the people that I coach tend to be wealthy, right? Most tend to be wealthy, or at least well off, if not wealthy. Many of those people have their executives, and they have 2 homes, one in Manhattan and then one outside someplace, one on Long Island, one in upstate New York, one in the Jersey Shore, something like that. Well, once COVID hits, they decided, why sit in the city if I can't work? They went to their other homes, and now they've been working for 3 or 4 months now from their nice homes on Long Island or Jersey Shore or upstate New York, some in Pennsylvania. That happens sometimes, but usually it's those 3 spots. They're liking it. They don't want to come back. They don't want to come back. Why would you? If you can get paid the same amount without having to have a Manhattan apartment, if you can get the same amount of money without or even a little bit less, but just living out there, get the same amount of work done, you don't want to come back. If you don't want to come back, well, then you're not going to be spending that money in a city. And then not just that, all the people who support you aren't going to spend money in that city. And then the people who support them aren't going to spend money in that city. It is going to change what New York City looks like. And some of you may or may not care, but remember, that's your cities too, not just mine. All those cities, they're going to change. This is going to make a massive change in New York City and other cities too, which means good and bad. The good part is, well, suburbs will get more people, and so will rural areas. The bad part is suburbs and rural areas will get more people. So that's good and that's bad. A lot of you people live in rural areas because you don't want all the people. Well, they might start coming now because they can now do that, do the get some amount of money or a little bit less, not going in the city. But not just that. I talked about employees in our last one. Some employees are going to say, if you're not available to do telecommuting, if you're not going to do that, then I'm not going to work for you. And they're going to lose talent. They're going to lose talent, lose customers, and lose leadership if they don't change. The company's going to change. The cities are going to change. Work as we know is going to change. And so is retail and everything else. There's going to be a lot of different issues. So without globalization, we wouldn't have recovered so quickly, though. Look, Dennis, I'm not saying that globalization is a bad or a good thing. I'm saying it's both, right? We have to deal with that, accept that as true. It's good and bad, and we have to try to our best of our ability to embrace the good aspects of it and deal with the bad aspects of it and keep them down. And yes, 2-3% inflation, so there's no growth. And now take away 10%. Oh my God. Yes, absolutely. Yes, Cuomo is trash. I would agree. Yes. The city council where I lived acknowledged that we're in a recession when they were redoing their budget for FY21. Yeah, and in fact, we're going into a depression. 100%, a total depression. 100%. Tom, lockdown past the first 2 weeks is not saving any lives. It's delaying illness and destroying quality of life. Yes, I'm going to cover that in a couple of minutes. They go through exactly that, Tom. You are exactly correct. It is not helping. It is hurting. It is making us lonelier. It's making us less safe. It's making us less healthy. It's hurting no matter what. Absolutely. Yes. I'm afraid for our kids. They are suffering the most. Will they ever be the same socially? I don't think so. Sadly, at least I think you're right. I hope you're wrong, but I think you're right. This is going to hurt them even more. They're already struggling. This just makes it harder. They're already struggling from using social media. This just makes it harder. Yes, invest in local onion growers, Matt. You're exactly right. Yes, onion growers. Yes, exactly right. New York is going to be an economic wasteland. I don't think so, Paul, because we have one advantage that Detroit doesn't have, right? New York, Paul says New York is going to be an economic wasteland like Detroit. I don't think that's true. And the reason is New York has something Detroit doesn't have, and that is tourism. So I think we're going to be smaller and nowhere near as vibrant, but we do have a very strong, powerful tourist industry that Detroit doesn't have. So I think that is going to keep us afloat, if that makes sense. That's what I believe, because people still want to come here to see Broadway, to see the Statue of Liberty, Empire State Building, Freedom Tower, all those types of Wall Street. I think there's enough tourism here that will keep the city going. I do think we will still have that, and some businesses too, some also, but we will struggle. Yes. Time to get jobs and pay your own way in life. This is the hard part, Jake. You brought something up. I got to keep going because they're going to start talking about that right now. Let me go because, Jake, you're taking some of my thunder away. Here we go.
Whether that's in South Korea, America, or Sweden. But the missing 10% will mean life will feel far from normal.
Yes.
In China, large chunks of everyday life are missing.
Changing completely.
Having collapsed in January, consumer footfall has recovered to about half its previous levels.
So for those who know what consumer footfall means, that's a term that means foot traffic or how many people come into a store, right? That's what that means, consumer footfall. So when it was at 100%, now it's about 50% of people are coming into stores now, physical retail shops.
Hotel occupancy is still down by around 50%. And 75% fewer people are flying.
Look at that, 75%.
What's mainly in the missing 10% is stuff that is hard to do if you're trying to social distance.
So now we're getting bad at all the things that we want to do, right? The things that we enjoy as humans. Going to the movies, eating and drinking out, doing the things that that most people work so they can do, right? You work and try to have a second job so you can go do these other things that you enjoy, that you like, being with family and friends, enjoying your life. And those are things we're losing. Oh my God.
So things like restaurants and hotels, theaters, cinemas. And crucially, it's also the way in which people tend to have fun.
Yes.
So it's a world where you work, and then as soon as the day is over, you immediately get back to your house as fast as possible.
Boo! That's terrible. So you work so you can go home. So you work so you can go home. Well, then why go out to work? Just stay home and we'll all be cave dwellers. You know, there's one point, and I don't mean to sound crass. I mean to sound human when I say this. There's one point to where why have a society at all if we can't enjoy one another in the way that humans enjoy each other? If we can't do the things that we want to do, why even have a society at all? This is a very important piece. I really believe it to be true. Yes. Larry, would you call capitalism a tool, a culture, both, or something else? Wow, that is a very tough question. Usually I don't use the phrase capitalism at all. I used it on purpose here because it was kind of provocative. I wanted people to watch and pay attention. Usually I use consumer driven or market driven. I usually don't use capitalism. Value for value. I use other phrases that people like because capitalism tends to have a bad feeling for most people. Most Americans, when they hear capitalism, they think crony capitalism. They don't think actual capitalism. But I think capitalism actually is a culture. That's what I believe. It's an overarching, it's a macro culture, not a micro culture. It's a macro culture. And understanding that we should try to let people do all the relationships through voluntary exchange, right? That's what we should be trying to achieve to the best of our ability. I think I'd call it a macro culture, not a regular culture or a minor culture, microculture or subculture. I'd call it a macro culture. All right. Michael, COVID-19 has not destroyed this country's economy. What has is the government's response to it. Right on the money, Michael. You are 100% correct. Right on the money. That's true. And I would say this to everybody who's watching. When someone says to you, you know, I lost my job because of COVID. Say, no, you didn't. You lost your job because of the government's response. I lost my business because of COVID. No, you didn't. You lost your business because of the government's response. The government shutdown is what took care of that. That is what got rid of it. You are 100% right, Michael. Thank you. Yes. All right. Let me keep going if I could on this one.
This dip in so-called fun spending will continue even after lockdowns are relaxed.
Yes, that's the problem. So now the lockdowns are relaxed, but the people have changed, right? That's the issue. The culture has changed. So even though now you go, well, you can go to restaurants. Some of us will. Me and my steak eater, we're going to rush over there and get some steaks. Her medium, me medium rare. That's going to happen. But a lot of us aren't going to do that. Watch Sweden.
In Sweden, most people were never asked to stay at home during the pandemic. But Swedish spending patterns over the past few months have mirrored those in neighboring Denmark.
That's what, if you remember, and I'm a little upset here because if you remember what I was talking about, I was talking about voluntary answers literally 4 months ago. On this program, I was talking about voluntary measures. Let's make it voluntary and watch people react effectively. And Sweden is the proof. Never made the lockdown and still decided on their own to do the right thing because the vast majority of humans will. You don't have to decide to put them in jail. You don't have to lock them down. They found ways of surviving already. They didn't destroy their entire economy over this.
Which has been under lockdown. Daily restaurant turnover fell by 70% last month as uncertainty.
Now, fell by 70%. That doesn't mean zero. Doesn't mean zero. And they found ways of getting around it.
Over the economy and fear of infection meant fewer Swedes ate out. And while overall Danish spending fell by 29% during lockdown, Swedes cut their spending by almost as much.
What the evidence suggests now is that actually it's people's own voluntary decisions about how they behave.
What? So wait a minute. What the data just now you figured out? Luckily, they just figured it out now. Just now they figured out that the data has come up that voluntary action works. Huh. Look at that. The economists figured that out now. Awesome. The Libertarian Party knew that 50 years ago, but hey, better late than never. You figured it out. I'm in. I'm happy. Thank you for that. I was talking about that 4 months ago. But that's fine. Late's better than never.
Shaping economies actually more than what the government is telling people.
So voluntarily, we can shape our own society. Remember from our last video I showed from prior to COVID, they were talking about the Financial Times was discussing this last year, homeboy. Where you been? Your people, Brits. They were talking about it last year. And now you're bringing it up? You're late to the party.
To do. The lockdown itself is not really influencing behavior that much.
Yep.
The true economic impact of imposing lockdowns will take time to emerge. In China, it was several months after the lockdown began to be lifted before bankruptcy numbers started to rise.
It wouldn't be that surprising if we think we're kind of through the worst of it.
Yep.
We end the lockdown, and then things start to get even worse than we had expected.
Now, this is the thing. I dealt with this. For some of you who may have been in business in 2008, 2009, you know what I'm talking about. The crash hit me about 2009. That's when I felt it. I wasn't devastated until a year later. I wasn't devastated until 2010. That's when I was devastated. Well, why, Larry, after the crash hit you in 2009? Because when the crash hits you, when I saw it happening in 2008, I thought naively, because I'm an optimist and I'm an entrepreneur, I thought it doesn't matter. You know, what's the worst that can happen? We'll get around this. It'll be nothing. I'll be fine. Kept my employees, kept my office on 3rd Avenue, kept all of that stuff. I'm fine. Life is good. Then it starts hitting me hard in 2009. I mean, literally my income went down by about 90%. I had employees. I had rent in Manhattan, family, wife doesn't work. You can imagine what my debt became. And the debt became so much at one point, by 2010, I just couldn't handle it anymore. Shut the office down, fired the employees. I went under in 2010, even though I got hit in 2009, even though the crash hit in 2008. So the crash hit 2008, I got hit 2009, I went on 2010. That's what he's saying. We're not done.
For the past few months, the global economy has been propped up by unprecedented levels of state aid.
What?
In Europe's 5 largest economies, 1 in 5 workers is currently in a special scheme where the state pays their wages.
I want you to hear that. In Europe's top 5 economies, 1 in 5 people is being paid by the government. That doesn't mean government workers. That's different. 1 in 5 people is their salaries being propped up by government. Holy cow. How is that sustainable? How is that sustainable? It just isn't. Hold on. 425 billion into a 4.25 trillion in stimulus is definitely a 10% downfall. Yeah, this is going to be a problem. Absolutely. Yes, you're right. It's a problem. Yes. Notice how the pro-lockdown news networks don't bring up Sweden anymore. They don't. You're totally right. Yes, absolutely. I've talked to a few therapist friends who are actually depressed themselves because the lockdown has left them miserable and lonely. Missy, yes. Loneliness is terrible. Horrible. It's soul crushing. And those of you who felt depression, I know many of you have, probably all of us have at least once, but many of us have felt it and been deeply affected by it. It's soul crushing. I'd rather go outside and to take my chances with a mask. I'd rather do that. It's terrible. All right. The iconic McDonald's on 42nd closed for good. Well, I didn't even know that. Is that true? Oh my God, that's terrible. Absolutely. All right. In 1933, FDR, Democrat, put on the New Deal. In 1945, Truman, Democrat, put in the Fair Deal. 1954, Ike, Republican, continues the new Fair Deal. Created a government, Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. So Democrat. 61, JFK, Democrat, grows government. 63, LBJ, grows government. Yep. Department of Transportation, Medicaid, Medicare. Nixon, Republican, expands welfare. Democrat ideology, creates government agencies, OSHA, EPA. So again, Democrats, I'm sorry, yeah, Democrats and Republicans keep doing it. You're correct. I'm with you. They just keep going. This isn't working, Ray, and I'm glad you see it. I hope we see it and we can make a change. I really do. Real life economy lesson. Yes, I'm trying to let us know what's actually happening. It's why I want to bring this up. We can make a change if we get it. We absolutely can. 100%. All right. Time to bring back the Sears catalog. Hey, put it online, right? It's Amazon. That's what it is. I love it. 100%. All right. I won't wear a mask unless it's a business office that requires it. I get vilified for not wearing a mask. I've been told we should wear a mask in our own homes. I know. I've seen that, Missy. I wear a mask when I go into a business that says they require me to. I respect private property. I respect private businesses. If you want me to wear a mask, I have two choices. I wear a mask in your business or I don't go in your business. Out in the street, I don't though. I'm with you, Missy. In the street, I don't wear a mask. But when I go, I keep it on. I have it. And if I go into a business, I'll put it on because the business says so. I'm totally fine with that. I don't mind at all. Yes. I'm a software developer, so in theory, I could stay home all the time, but I'm still dying for things to return to normal so I can get back out there. Dennis, yes, you're a human like the rest of us. We like to go do things. That's what humans like. Even some of us like to stay indoors often. That's okay. Some people prefer to stay indoors a lot, but you still want to be able to go out when you want to go out, and you should be able to. As an American, you should be free. That's what we should be doing. And the problem is our governor and our government is telling us no, and we don't do anything. Yes. I don't tend to use the word capitalism for that very reason you just said. Plus, it's history as a slow. Oh, that's true. Yes, that's very true. Yes, it is. You're right. Absolutely. Yes. Let's see here. Gold has never sounded better principally and physically. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. 100%. Yes. All right. And when the market crashes, go about precious metals. Absolutely. Good. Yes. All right. What part of libertarian don't you like? Someone else talking about. Okay. Other people liking libertarians. Okay. It's all good. All right. Let me keep going if I can. I want to wrap this up if I can real fast here.
The government has deployed 750 billion euros to sustain companies. That's unprecedented.
Yep.
The government is going to step in and help to pay wages.
It's only as this support is gradually withdrawn
there it is.
that the wider cost of COVID-19 will become clear.
What happens when they stop doing that? At one point, you have to, don't you? Right? If you're getting your Trump bucks, was he giving you 600 extra bucks a month or whatever that amount is? If Trump's giving you, or the $1,200 check, whatever, you're getting your Trump bucks. Hey, I'm good. I can stay home, get my Trump bucks, spend some money. I'm all right. Life's okay. I could buy some stuff from Amazon. What happens when the Trump bucks go away? How long can the government give money? Right? Now, the funny part is this stuff began under Obama, right? The idea for the big ongoing started under Bush, but Obama implemented the entire thing where we're just doing what's called quantitative easing. For those of you who don't know what that is, I think it's every quarter, if not mistaken, the Fed just prints a bunch of extra money and shoves it into the economy. Literally. I'm not making that up. They just go, here's a bunch of money in the economy. Here's a bunch more money into the economy. And they've been doing this for like 10 years. Obama did it his entire presidency, and Trump just kept it. Went, oh, we're doing that? All right, I'm not going to say nothing. Trump said nothing. Kept going. Obama started it. Trump was like, fine, whatevs. Let it keep going. So now the precedent has been set. If you remember, the Bush Jr. Bush 43 actually gave the first, the check was it $1,000 check or whatever that check was. He started that issue, and then Obama was like, all right, I like that. And now Trump does it. He's on $1,200, right? Absolutely. So if he keeps giving the money out, at what point do we stop giving the money out? Once the government stops giving the money out, where are the jobs? What happens when unemployment runs out? Trump bucks are gone, unemployment runs out, and there's no jobs because the economy shrunk at least 10%, if not more, and will continue to shrink because there's no more government magic money to give out. Guys, we have a big problem here. My gut tells me the money keeps coming. Doesn't stop until after the election. Look, if you're President Trump, what are you going to do? Are you going to put yourself through that? If I'm Trump, I'm going to try to prop this up to the election and then fix it afterwards. Then fix it. I got 4 years to fix it at that point, right? That's his legacy at that point, right? So hopefully if you're Trump, you want to fix this by 2024 so your legacy is a good economy, right? But if you don't fix it, your legacy is in the toilet. So if I'm him, I'm giving the money. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep giving the money. What other option do you have at that point, right? Dennis thinks it's going away soon, but I'm not sure. I think he changed his mind. I think he gives the money. I think he keeps doing it because of what I just said. Otherwise, as Shelley says, it crashes, and it crashes at a bad time for the Trump administration. How are you going to fix the economy in 4 months before the election? Could you fix it? Yeah, you could fix it. But in 4 months, he'd have to have magic powers. Magic powers. I don't see it. I think he doesn't do it. I think he doesn't do it. Okay, there we go.
It will feel quite sort of uncertain.
Yep.
Because, no one really knows how businesses and households are going to be able to survive weeks and months of much lower incomes.
Yes.
It will.
Did you just do Hoovervilles? Hold on, I just saw that. Matt, come on now. Hoovervilles? For those of you who don't know, that's like shanty towns. So yeah, nice reference, Matt. Nice. This guy's an economics geek. Thank you, Matt. Very nice. Yes. I hope you're wrong. That's all I'm going to tell you. I hope you are wrong. I hope that's not true. I hope you're wrong.
Impact all levels of the economy. Let's take a look at one scenario. A small business owner runs a chain of restaurants.
Yep.
When the pandemic hits, he takes out a loan and furloughs his staff.
Of course. So he takes a loan from the government and then puts his furloughs a bunch of his staff.
He's not alone. In March, more cash was handed out to UK businesses than in any month since records began.
In March, they did 34 billion pounds. America did the same thing. Remember those loans that we gave out in our stimulus package? Yep, same idea.
And after lockdown, he reopens, but business is slow, so he makes staff redundant.
Absolutely.
And closes a restaurant as he can't pay the rent.
That's the problem, the rent part.
This has already been happening.
Yep.
In the first quarter of the year, the share of commercial tenants who paid their rent on time in Britain fell from 90% to 60%.
Only 60% of commercial tenants paid their rent on time in the UK. Imagine the ripple effects of that. I'm sure it's happening here in America too. Imagine you're not paying your rent. Who's paying the mortgage? Who's paying the banks?
With big firms like Burger King admitting they couldn't make rent on empty restaurants.
BK can't
Without
do it.
these rent payments, his landlord can no longer keep up with her mortgage. And ultimately, her bank is left with debt that cannot be repaid.
Who's going to pay it back?
The problem with all of these losses across the economy is that someone eventually has to sort of admit that they are going to bear these losses, and the kind of consequences of that for business confidence and for investment.
If you remember, I had a plan for this, guys. I talked about this 4 months ago. I called it the 3-half plan. And the 3-half plan was a plan to have someone absorb the damage, remove all of the crony capitalism, and most important, keep people in place. Keep people in place. It's 3 halves. First, this was the entire basis of it. For the next 6 months, and this was back in February, I mentioned this. For the next 6 months, no financial institution may demand payment on any type of loan or any type of outstanding debt at all for 6 months in America. None, may not. Insurance, credit card, mortgage, nothing for 6 months. They just may not demand it. If you want to pay, you could pay, but absolutely, you may not force it at all. You may not demand it for 6 months. That's half a year. On top of that, any employer who wants to pay his staff can pay his staff half salary. If they want to, regardless of any agreement you made, you may pay half of that, even regardless of minimum wage, you may pay half. And you say, well, how can you pay half of the salaries? Oh my God, how's that possible? Because the other part is half rent. Anybody who has rent, half rent. Whatever your agreement is, half rent. Well, Larry, how is a landlord going to survive with only half the rent? they don't have to pay their mortgage for 6 months. So for 6 months, they're getting half rent, but no mortgage payment. You can survive. You don't have to throw people out of homes. No need for evictions. No need for any collapse whatsoever. Well, Larry, how can someone take half salary? They can take half salary because their rent's half and or their mortgage is half. I'm sorry, their rent's half, but their mortgage is nothing. There's no mortgage and the rent's half. But more importantly, they're not paying credit card bills. There's no bills. If you're not paying credit card bills and you're not paying mortgage or you're paying half rent, you can take half salary. Also means the business can stay in place. All that means is now everyone can stay in place. Everyone's still suffering a little bit, but they all stay in place. And no one's getting bad credit. People don't have to leave their homes. Businesses can stay open. And on top of that, now I've got 6 months to go. All right, how do I change my business model to survive in COVID? Who do I want to fire? Who do I want to keep? Who do I want to hire? Who do I not want to? New businesses could still open because they could hire people for half salaries. So you could still move the economy slowly together and figure things out. But wait a minute, who's going to absorb this? Guess who's going to absorb this? The banks. Here's the sad part, and some of you libertarians go crazy when I say this. We're going to bail the banks out. This is America. That's how it works. It's going to happen. You can tell me how wrong it is. You can tell me how bad it is. I will agree with you. We can sit together and shake our fists and go, yeah, bad, and we're going to do it. And since we're going to bail the banks out, let's just very simply say, okay, bankers, you have actuaries, you have bankers. Tell us what it costs for 6 months. Here's your check, magic money for the Fed. Done. Done. It is the equivalent of 6 months loan forgiveness. Without having to pay back later, you just write the check to the banks directly. No crony capitalism. No one loses. No one moves out. You can keep your own home. People aren't going bankrupt. You don't have to move. You can keep your social net. You can keep your stability. You can keep confidence in your life. You can survive as a human. And in the long run, we pay less. Are we still going to be X trillion dollars in debt? Yes. Yes, going to happen. But that would have dealt with even this issue. There wouldn't be all those companies going under. There wouldn't be bankruptcies because we'd work our way through it. A whole different issue. I discussed this and nobody wanted to hear it.
That could be very significant. If you are concerned that your customers or your tenants or whoever is not going to actually be paying the money they owe you, then making new investments is not just risky. It's actually completely impossible to.
Yes, and this is what I was saying. If you tried my plan, at least you wouldn't feel so worried or scared. You deal with it. You could at least deal with it. Okay, let me keep going on a couple of these questions if I could. Hold on. You think after decades and decades of throwing money at the problems, they'd realize it doesn't work? But no. More money or force, Joe. Those are two answers. More money or hit it with a stick. That's it. Bomb it or throw money at it. That's basically the only way you could do that. Yeah, term limits would help. I'm a fan. How in the world is it supposed not to inflation? I think it has to, right? Or maybe worse, deflation. But one of the two, it's going to be bad, Bernard. I agree. It's going to be bad. I think it is 100%. Investor burn through. I like that. We do need term limits. Absolutely. So basically, you read my mind. Basically deflating the economy. Yes, that could happen too. Yes, you deflate the economy. Yes, absolutely. But in my view, it's temporary, right? It's a temporary piece of what I want to do. Absolutely. And debt forgiveness is it's challenging. This is a government-made problem. It's a self-inflicted wound, right? And we've got to be able to deal with it somehow. And it's not easy.
Price, because everything is so unstable. And so the risk of that is that things like investment get cut back massively, and that will have very large effects.
Key economic factors already indicate that the world is facing a prolonged recession.
Yep, guaranteed.
Already, unemployment in America is at its highest rate since the Great Depression.
This is about 3 weeks ago when this came out.
But these losses will not be felt equally.
Yep.
To see how, let's go back to our restaurant owner. The industries hit hardest by the COVID-19 pandemic are labour-intensive and rely on an army of low-paid workers. And it is these people who are particularly likely to lose their jobs.
Yep.
In America, you are already twice as likely to be made redundant if you're earning less than $20,000 a year than $80,000 a year.
And we know that a lot more people are making less than $20,000 a year. A lot of people are, right? Particularly those who aren't even, saying what they're actually making, right? Those people who aren't being, 100% honest on what they're making. Absolutely. So it's a bigger issue.
The kind of jobs that won't exist at all or in much reduced numbers will be the kind of jobs that are typically done by people who are paid less,
Yep.
Jobs that are done by women, and jobs that are done by ethnic minorities more commonly. So that's jobs in things like leisure hospitality, retail trade, and that kind of thing.
Poor women are always hammered the worst. I can't stand that. I wish that wasn't true, but it's true. Poor women are always hammered the worst.
So I think you could expect unemployment to be really concentrated in certain groups.
And these economic changes will shape the political agenda in the post-lockdown world.
Yep, there's my problem.
You could imagine a situation where it becomes kind of commonsensical that the essential workers who've kept the economy going, you could imagine a push toward.
See, this part bothers me. The essential workers. It really bothers me. Don't get me wrong. I want to be clear on this. The medical personnel who have been sacrificing, they're amazing. Absolutely. It just doesn't make other people non-essential, right? The Marines who fought in Afghanistan and Iraq, I mean, they're amazing. It doesn't mean other people are essential. It makes them amazing, but it doesn't make us bad. And this is the piece that drives me crazy, right? Our soldiers, sailors, and Marines who are fighting overseas are amazing. I mean, they're putting themselves through horrible things. Doesn't mean we at home aren't essential. Just means they're amazing. So these people, they're great. But this idea of almost like saying they're better than us, it's going to come back to bite us. It's not the right way of looking at it.
Towards trying to improve their standard of living and standard of work. On the other hand, you could imagine a situation where countries kind of close in on themselves and say, we don't want immigrants because immigrants bring disease, and we want to make sure that we have capacity to build vaccines for our citizens, for no one else.
Yep, there's the other issue. Who's the blame person, right? Yes, Shelley, everyone is essential. Absolutely. And if your job, whatever that job is, brings in money for your household, that's an essential job. Absolutely. If that job brings in money for your household, it's an essential job. If you are, and you as a person, you are essential as a human being, and your job is essential, absolutely. Yes. Reset capitalism and reset our government. Yes, reset our government. Thank you, Jamie. I'm with you. Let's reset our government.
It's too soon to know which way the political tide will turn.
No, it isn't.
And each country's response will be different. But one certainty is that the longer we all have to wait for a vaccine to be developed and distributed, or effective treatment found, the more pronounced the effects of the 90% economy will be.
And that's my problem right there. Why in the world is the only answer waiting for a vaccine or a treatment? What if a vaccine takes 20 years, 5 years? What if people don't want the vaccine? What if the vaccine doesn't work? Insert thing here. Every time we have a crisis like this, we have a virus, we're going to shut the economy down and wait for a vaccine to pop up. That's the answer. They ended on that one with a big close until further notice. That's the answer. What a terrible idea.
My name's Callum Williams. I'm senior.
Here, what I got to bring up here is I don't want to. The biggest issue of all of this is of all the countries that got hit that weren't East Asian, right? The East Asian countries did the best, not only because some of them were very much aggressive, but because they've been through this before. And they've been through with avian flu and everything, SARS. They've been through all this stuff before. So they knew how to handle this. And they knew we can't shut our economy down. We have to find a way to survive in this environment. We decided, oh my God, COVID, shoot ourselves in the foot fast, shoot. That's what we did. Sweden didn't. Sweden's going to be better after this. We aren't. We're going to be just as stupid because we have to, the politicians have to validate their bad behavior. So they're never going to admit how bad this was. They're never going to admit what a terrible answer this was. They're always going to be acting like this was the only thing they could do. There was nothing else. What else could they do? It's what we knew, the whole idea, all of that stuff. We can't simply wait for a vaccine every time this happens. We have to find ways to survive and function in our own environment, even when the next virus comes, whatever it is. What happens if it's worse than this one? This one's bad. What if it's worse? What if the next one's worse? Do we just sit in our homes for the next, year and just die? Is that what we do? They talk about this being a war, right? Cuomo's like, this is another day like in a war. Trump is, I'm a wartime president. Oh, war, war, war. And then we just surrender? I wasn't taught to fight a war that way. I was taught to be offensive on a war. That's what I was taught. Was I wrong? Let's get out there and be humans. I think we don't want to reset capitalism. We want to reset our government. And we can do it. We can do it. Absolutely, Travis. Every part of the economy is important. Reset and improve the government. Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. The only people you might say not directly essential are like dog walkers or something. But indirectly, they still definitely are. They still are, because that dog walker, while that may not be essential in theory, there's someone who needs their dog walked. So that person is doing something else while their dog is being walked, which might be essential or whatever, important to someone else. And that dog walker also spends money and buys things, which helps somebody else out. So absolutely, even the dog walker is important. Absolutely. They better than us. What's the difference when the Democratic Party decides that her constituents are better than conservatives? I think both sides do that. But in New York, oh my God, you're right. New York, if you live in New York State and you're a conservative, you are less than. There's no doubt. Our governor has been clear on that. If you're a conservative in New York State, you are less than. You're not essential. You're correct, Naomi. He has been clear on that. It's embarrassing, but yes, absolutely. The newest vaccine for chickenpox was 1995, after hundreds of years of the virus. It's a valid point, right? So what are we going to do? Wait 100 years? I don't know what we're going to do here. Look, if you want to take a vaccine, please go ahead. If you want to wait for a vaccine, please do so. I'm not against vaccines. I'm not against you getting a vaccine. If you want one, go on, enjoy, do what you feel is right for you and your body and your health and your family. Do what you think is correct. But why would you want to stop everyone's life because you would like to wait for a vaccine? Why do you want to stop the economy? It doesn't make any sense. It absolutely doesn't make any sense. Yes, that is always our government's response. Absolutely. What if the people had the power? Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Cuomo will never be held accountable for the high nursing home fatalities. I think you're right, Brittany. I think he will make an excuse. I think he will turn around and make up some reason why this is important. 100%. I think you're right. He's going to get around it, because if he is held accountable, he's finished. His career is finished as governor of New York, and when he tries to run for president, that will go away also. So I think you're right. He has to find a way of getting around that. He has to. Absolutely. Anyone who provides a service or a product is essential, period. Yep. Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Also in my blue state. There we go. Now that's how it is. Absolutely. So anyway, guys, I hope that was interesting. I wanted to show you something interesting. I know I had a different thing scheduled this evening, but I had adjust because of a cancellation. I hope this was still interesting and fun. In the long run, what I wanted to get at was we can change this. The power of the people changing culture is always stronger than government in the long run. Not always in the short run. Government has guns and bombs, so it's often better in the long run, in the short run. But in the long run, it's only us. If we decide to make the change early and try to get us around this, we will recover better. I had lots of ideas on how to recover before. People didn't listen. I get it. I have more of them. Hopefully in the future we will. But right now, let's start realizing that we actually do have the power. If we do it, we can use it. It can actually work. Thank you, guys. I will see you all tomorrow.